There's no point in trying to serve the world when you are really, wallet tracking your customer. It's completely inconsistent. You come into work, you maximize what you can take from the customer. Then maybe in your weekend persona, you go serve somebody. This type of dichotomy, this type of dualism itself drives people crazy often. And that is why often the burnout, all that, because there is an inner sorrow that comes from this dichotomy.
Welcome to episode 842 of CXOTalk, where we explore the intersection of AI, leadership, and the digital economy. I'm your host, Michael Krigsman, and today we're discussing social impact in business. Our guest is Sridhar Vembu, the founder of enterprise software company Zoho, and someone for whom I personally have the highest respect.
Zoho is now 28 years running, completely bootstrapped, still private, no outside money, no debt, about 15 plus thousand employees, almost 16,000 now, and with revenue that is between 1 and 2 billion, we'll soon be approaching the 2 billion mark in the next maybe year and a half, whenever. And growing at a steady clip. The growth rate has come down this year, but still growing at a decent clip, profitable. So that's the snapshot of the company. About 750,000 odd customers around the world. We are with B2B software, enterprise software, and about 100 million users worldwide. That includes our free users, but really the 750 paying orgs are our customer base.
It's really interesting that you are bootstrapped, and I know from our prior conversations you don't have any plans to go public. Tell us about that. Why this approach?
One word, freedom. Really, public companies are on a treadmill with quarter-to-quarter pressure. Even if they are doing really awesome, they have to do even more awesome next quarter. I mean, look at a company like NVIDIA right now, right? Top of the world, 3 trillion market cap. But is that done? In fact, the CEO's job is the toughest in that circumstance, because how do you top that? And remember, the buyer of the share at $3 trillion valuation would expect to see a reasonable return on that investment. That means it has to go up to 4 trillion, 5 trillion, 6 trillion. Those are, almost impossible numbers. In fact, I would have said 3 trillion is an impossible number, impossible hurdle. So that's the treadmill the stock market, the public companies face. The net result is that internally, that pressure on the CEO and the board and the top management gets transmitted to employees. And there's only so much pressure people can take. And that results in maybe attrition and people burning out and morale, all of those. And I don't want our company to be that way. So we choose to stay private.
So there is a clear impact then on the way you operate the company and on the culture that you have very intentionally tried to establish at the company.
The freedom, what it means is, first, we have to be profitable in order to grow at all, because there's no outside source of funding. So that's like both a constraint and it's a useful disciplining device on ourselves. That means we have to balance our books. We have to make a little extra something to be able to invest for the future. So that's the constraint, and that has operated to discipline us from our own tendencies to go, expand too rapidly or bet the house, all of that. So that is a good thing. And in return for that restraint and discipline, we get the freedom of operation. We can, for example, in terms of how we organize our teams, in terms of our autonomy for our people, all of these, that the company specializes in empowering our employees. And that's also, to me, empowering, because then I don't have to micromanage anybody. And my own job is not stressful as a result. In fact, I like to say that I want my job to be as stress-free as possible. Likewise for our employees. There can be an occasional stress we can take, maybe a few days of a sprint for something, but you cannot be permanently in that state. That's what a lot of companies, unfortunately, end up putting their people through. That's something that we avoid, and that's entirely because we are private and we can afford to do it this way.
The question of running the business, putting something aside, having that discipline, it seems to me that gets right to the heart of your general approach, but it's also extraordinarily unusual to be able to be at your size, not have raised any capital, and to have made social responsibility a core part of your mission. That's extremely unusual, especially in technology.
Yeah, I mean, sadly so, because I don't like to think of ourselves as exceptional in any way. I just wish more companies could do what we do and could discover our way of life that is actually a happy way to be. Our employees are happy, I'm happy, and that comes from this way of thought. And one more advantage of the way we operate is the whole long-term R&D, long-term investments we can make. We have sustained, for example, investment in technologies for 10 years, 15 years sometimes before we see a profit. And those are critical technologies that need to be done well, but takes time to do so, that we have been able to afford to carry that investment for that long because we are private. And that's one of the benefits of how we do it. This has other attendant benefits. It builds up capabilities in people, because this investment in this R&D is very much an investment in our people's capabilities. And that improves morale, because when you are investing in building up the capabilities, the people stand to benefit and they're happier as a result. So there's all of those benefits. And then the customers benefit because the benefits of that technology flows through into our products. So we make customers happier, all of the above. Now, this is the critical part we figured out over the last 5 years, since I moved myself to a village in India, a small village, a remote village, is that how to link this whole R&D, long-term R&D outlook with rural development, rural economic development. And I can, I'll explain this over the course of our conversation. But really, to me, research and development and rural development are two sides of the same coin. They're closely linked. That's how I see them now.
Why are they closely linked, and why are R&D, research and development, and rural development two sides of the same coin?
Let's step back and look at the state of affairs in America now. You have Silicon Valley with extremely valuable companies, Seattle, similarly, extremely valuable companies. Then you have vast stretches of the country. We sometimes, pejoratively call them flyover country, whatever, where the opportunities for a decent life are diminished for a generation or two now. And people have to get out, right? In order to make it, you have to get out of those areas. That has been sadly true in too many areas. Formerly glorious towns with a good civic history have declined because of the decline of their core industry. What is the root cause? And this similar thing is true in India in a different way. Really, what has happened is every one of us in the world now, whether you are in rural India or you are in rural America or anywhere in the world or in Hong Kong, anywhere, we have come to depend on critical technologies for our day-to-day life, be it the smartphone and be it the computers, be it all of the technologies that surround us today. They've become more and more sophisticated. And the sophistication has meant that the production, the value chain of production, the capabilities, all of them have become concentrated. In other words, there is very many vast areas of the world, including vast areas in America, we don't have the capabilities to put together something like the iPhone. Those capabilities are concentrated in few areas, geographically concentrated now. That means the value derived from that capabilities goes to only those areas. That could be Silicon Valley, that could be New York, that could be Seattle, but vast areas of the country do not take part in the value chain of the production. But they do take part in the consumption. And that creates an imbalance that That imbalance is what is really driving that economic decline, where I am buying all this technology because my day-to-day life depends on them, but I'm not deriving any income from all this. So the loop is not closed. My money goes out, but it never comes back in here. That's, in a very crude way, that's the truth. And the stuff that I have to sell, including my own time, is not worth as much as the stuff I have to buy. And that's the reality in rural India as well. Now we can see the link between research and development and rural development. So the research and development to create those capabilities, rural development is situating those capabilities in geographically otherwise challenged areas so that the income from figuring all this out accrues to that area, and then there is a multiplier effect. So if I create some high-value jobs, even, in fact, by my calculation, even 1 or 2% of the population engaged in this high-value area, high-value jobs in that rural area, can drive that local economy, can act as the economic engine for that area and create a massive multiplier effect. It could be 10-fold, 20-fold multiplier effect. So it has an effect of spreading prosperity regionally. So that's a connection between research and development, creating that high-value activity with high-paying jobs, and rural development, where you're spreading the fruits in a regional way.
So the reasons for decentralization, for your interest in decentralization, is it A, to build a bigger, more profitable, more successful company? Or B, because you have a philosophical desire to create greater equality?
It's closer to B because, honestly, I don't need more money. In fact, as I get older, my needs are diminishing. So, more money doesn't make me any happier. It probably will make me only less happier. But where I come from, people need jobs. And same thing true here. Like McAllen, Texas, we go to lots of people who otherwise, they have the talent, but nobody is willing to bet on them. Those are the people I want to create that opportunity. And the opportunity comes from investing in R&D to figure complex things out, create those capabilities, and then create the income that can help through the multiplier effect regionally. The way the multiplier effect works is it's simply a balancing device. Like I'm buying a lot of technology, but I don't have any income from that. Now, with our jobs, we have regionally some source of income from that. So it helps balance the trade with the rest of the world from that regional point of view. That's really what we are doing. So it's closer to that. To me, organically, without legislation, without all the attendant political fights, this can help balance economies and therefore address problems of inequality.
So if I understand this correctly, then you are a private company, which gives you the freedom and the flexibility to approach business in the way that you do. But because you are a business, there's a kind of natural set of boundaries that also gets placed because you have to be profitable. If you don't continue profitability, then you can't stay in business. So all of these pieces feed together and in a very, we could say, organic way. That's what I'm taking away from your comments.
I've described it as a kind of an experiment in philosophy, discovering certain truths or proving to ourselves certain philosophical truths for us. But this experiment is constrained by the reality check of having to pay for them ourselves. Plus, the problem with philosophical experiments is if someone else has to pay for them, if the government has to pay for them, it can get very undisciplined. It can go completely out of hand and then lose all touch with reality. That's the problem with trying these experiments in a political realm. And I think, in my opinion, the private sector, particularly private entrepreneurs, are in a position to attempt to solve these problems in a context of this discipline imposed by having to be profitable. And that's what I'm trying to do.
So for you, profitability is a must, and at the same time, exercising the philosophical aspects that you were just describing, can we say equally is a must?
Yes. And these two are two sides of the same coin, because then the philosophy is grounded by the reality check. Are we able to satisfy customer needs? Are we able to make a living? Are we creating capabilities that are valuable to other people? Are our products, our technology is relevant? Because if there is an outside source of money, free money, maybe from even the government, all of that will go out the window. We can take we can pursue flights of fancy with no connection to reality and delude ourselves into thinking we are making a difference. That's very much a problem with these types of approaches. That's why being profitable, serving customers in this real world keeps us grounded. At the same time, that gives us the freedom to pursue that philosophical inquiry.
Please subscribe to our newsletter so we can notify you about upcoming shows. Check out CXOTalk.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're talking here about enterprise software. We have not discussed at all CRM or the suite of products. And so where does that fit in? You're an enterprise software company.
I situate that enterprise software in the broad suite of advanced technologies that we have come to depend on for civilization to continue today, right? It's very much part of the whole smartphones, and from there to the semiconductor fabs, all the semiconductor chips are made, the databases, the operating systems, the robotic automation technologies that populate our factories. Enterprise software is very much part of that whole firmament of technologies that are needed for complex civilized world today. And I also see that as a part of those. So we are very much investing. For example, we are investing in some automation technologies in manufacturing. We are investing in some, for example, recently we made an investment in drone technology. And these are small investments to power R&D right now, but in the same flavor. R&D capabilities in a rural context, creating high-value jobs that can then operate as a kind of an economic engine regionally. That's the whole approach. But in that case, it would be drones. In some other case, it could be MRI machines. It could be robotics, automation. So all of them are part and parcel of the same philosophical journey.
I just want to remind everybody we're speaking with Sridhar Vembu. He is the CEO of Zoho. And we're talking about social impact. And you can ask Sridhar whatever you want. So if you're watching on the CXOTalk site, just go to Twitter and use hashtag, I guess X now is what we call it, and use hashtag CXOTalk and pop your question there. If you're watching on LinkedIn, put your question into the LinkedIn chat. Folks, take advantage of this opportunity. When else will you have a chance to ask Sridhar Vembu, whatever you want? So take advantage of it. And we do have a really interesting question from Twitter, and this is from Arsalan Khan, who's a regular listener, and he always asks thoughtful questions. And he says this: technology creates haves and have-nots. As the world pursues AI, how should AI be used by governments and companies in rural areas so they're not left behind? And he's saying training, universal basic income. So any thoughts on that, Sridhar?
AI is very much the part and parcel of this whole set of technologies. In fact, all of technologies now have created the haves and have-nots, because everybody is a consumer of those technologies, but only few people get to partake in the value addition, the income generation from the technology. That's a core problem. And that is also a regional problem, because most regions of the world do not have access to the value addition potential of the creation of the technology itself. So they are they end up being passive consumers of the technology, and that is an economic imbalance. That's what the inequality, that's what the haves and have-nots problem. AI, in fact, could accelerate these trends. Those trends are already evident even before the advent of AI. AI could accelerate it. In fact, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, has a very good blog post on this topic, and he says AI could make inequality worse, and his preferred solution is UBI. This is very much part of the question posted, universal basic income. He believes that there will be a few AI companies that will dominate the world, that will generate most of the profit, and these profit streams are immense. For example, most people, I don't know if they realize the magnitude of these profit streams. Microsoft, Google, Apple, each of them now pull in about $300 million per day, every single day, weekends included, of operating profit. It's close to about 120 billion, give or take. And that's the scale of the profits today. And AI and NVIDIA is getting up there. It's not yet quite in that league yet, but it's also growing fast in that league. And this is the 300 million per day I'm talking about. And AI companies, 2 or 3 dominating the world, could be generating even bigger cash flows, potentially. That's anyway Sam Altman's bet. In that world, he very much sees the problem. That means most of the world is dependent on it, but they don't get to participate in the income from it. It's sort of in a good approximation. Everybody is buying from me. I have nothing to buy from them. So they are going to be indebted to me. That's the idea. That's what happens, right? So what do? He proposes a solution that these AI companies essentially pay a dividend to the government, and you can think of it as even a tax to the government. The government takes that and distributes it to everyone in the form of basic income. And you can actually see the purpose of it. The reason for that is for the consumption to continue. Consumers in even rural areas anywhere need the income, since they don't have an organic way to earn that income by participating in this production value chains. The income is created by the government in the form of universal basic income. And to complete the flow, so the consumers pay these AI or tech companies. Tech companies pay what he calls a dividend, but it could be also called a tax, and that funds the thing. That's how the circuit is established. The flow is completed. That is his vision. Actually, there is a blog post in samaltman.com on this topic. It's very interesting. And in fact, it's very much addressing the same kind of problems, but the solution is very different. My preferred solution, and it's an experimental philosophy. I'm going to tell you that up front. It's not like, this will work everywhere, or I've made it work everywhere. I'm attempting it 1 or 2 places. I see promising results, but I don't want to overmarket this as the grand solution. But somebody has to do this. Somebody has to attempt these solutions, because my problem with UBI, I'll tell you, it robs the human being of dignity. No one wants to be really a passive recipient of a government toll like that. Really, at the end, it undercuts the dignity that comes from, I am worth something. I have something to offer. To me, that is a very core part of being human. And it's not that government shouldn't be supplementing this. It's that my entire income, my entire being cannot be just a passive recipient like that. So that's where I actually believe that we can create regional prosperity if we can spread the fruits of that technology capability around. In other words, we are not spreading wealth around. We are in fact spreading the foundational wellspring of that wealth, which are those capabilities. Can we do it? That's that's like a $100 trillion or $300 trillion question facing the world today, because a lot of the fate of the world's regional economies, the question of UBI versus no UBI, all of them hang in the balance. Can we get this answer right? Is it going to be possible to spread the wealth creation potential by creating those capabilities to many regional areas, particularly rural areas? Is that possible? That's what really our experiment is about.
For example, what you're trying to do in rural communities, which we'll be talking about, and the decentralization of technology that you spoke about earlier. The goal is create the capability, the opportunity for folks that are outside of these traditional centers of technology concentration development to give them the opportunity, and then they'll do with it what they will, and it will in some cases create wealth. But the point is to create the opportunity, the capability, the skills for wealth.
Exactly. And today, what happens is, even when educational institutions, even really outstanding universities and the like, come to exist in rural areas, which is very much the case in America. For example, you have, whether it's University of Illinois, Purdue University, and all of them exist in rural America, and they produce outstanding talent. But essentially, all of the talent leaves those regions and goes to Silicon Valley or wherever. So what happens is, and this is true in India as well, what happens is these universities in effect become vacuum cleaners of talent. They suck the talent from those regions, the surrounding areas, and then deliver it to Seattle and San Francisco or New York or wherever. And the region stays the same way. It doesn't really benefit from any of the capabilities it created. So what I'm trying to do is create those capabilities and enable the people to stay home so that their income gets invested there, and that creates additional wealth. That's how I see it.
We have a question from Chris Peterson, and Chris Peterson says, given the animating philosophy behind Zoho, do you still have explicit DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and ESG, environmental, social governance initiatives, or are all of these social common goods just built in?
Actually, it's the latter. It's built in. The problem I see with any of these, it has to be woven into the fabric of the company. It cannot be just a DEI office or a sustainability initiative that's apart from this. You know what happens, right? In the corporate world, you may have somebody with the title for DEI or sustainability or whatever. They may conduct some meetings or training or whatever. The rest of the employees, including senior management, often just politely maybe tolerate them, sometimes pay lip service to them, and very often just ignore them altogether. And this is there so that it looks good on a brochure. You know that, right? We all know this. I don't want to be that way. I want to create real opportunity. So, and that's why we don't like to pay. In fact, I almost don't like to use those DEI, ESG, all of that, simply because they became buzzwords. They almost became meaningless. So we have to incorporate that into the fabric of our existence rather than just, something that appears in a corporate website.
How do you integrate these goals and aspirations into the fabric of the company so that you are not just simply assigning sustainability to the sustainability manager and, go do sustainability. And by the way, let me just be clear. I'm not saying anything. I'm not trying to put down sustainability in managers. It's very important.
To me, the real question there is ultimately there's one critical metric. How much energy do we consume per capita to be able to lead a civilized life today? And compared to a pre-industrial society, even compared to rural India, the average American consumes maybe 200, 300 times the energy per capita. That's everywhere, heating and cooling of our facilities, our homes, all of it, our cars, the fuel consumption on it, all of it, basically. And it's 200 times, 300 times per capita, not simply, 5% or 50% more. That's what separates a pre-industrial to a highly advanced industrial civilization today. This is a fundamental issue to tackle, because how do we get that energy? What impact does that energy consumption create? From a pre-industrial rural society to modern industrial society, we are talking about a factor of 100, 200 often in terms of energy per capita energy use. How do we get the energy? What are the sources? What is the impact of using that energy? Be it carbon emissions, be it mining, all of it. That's really the question. And it throws up some really difficult questions. These are not easy at all. And the fate of humanity may hang in the balance. And I know there are people who think all this is hoax, but I actually, if you, for example, just recently in northern India, we recorded temperatures of 115, 120 degrees F in many places, and those places had never seen that hot. They usually see hot, but not this hot. And this seems to be going up every year. I mean, we are setting new records all the time. So it's clear that something is going on. And so we have to think about our energy consumption per capita. And this is related to the complexity of modern life that requires energy. In fact, there is this whole book by a complexity theorist. There's a field called clear dynamics. And I believe the name of the person is Professor Tainter. And he has come from that physics angle of energy consumption. And he makes the argument that complexity demands energy to sustain itself. Energy in joules. I mean, we're not talking about some metaphorical energy here. Any complex system requires energy to sustain itself. Modern civilization is extraordinarily complex, extraordinary dependencies across. We found some of that during the pandemic, and it requires massive energy. When we run out of cheap sources of energy, that's how civilizational collapse happens. And he defines collapse as going from very complex state to less complex state. That's how he calls it. It's a very persuasive thesis. In fact, there's a book I read by Professor Tainter, and I highly recommend this. At least you should be aware of this thesis. And he quotes examples from Roman to Mayan civilization to all of it for this whole running out of easy source of energy to sustain complex civilization. And that's and he believes that modern civilization may be at that juncture. And obviously nobody can know, but even without global warming as a threat, even if you put that aside, you still have this. All of the 8 or 9 billion people on Earth, all of the 1.4 billion people, can we raise our per capita energy consumption 50-fold, 100-fold to achieve the level of the average American today? Can we do that? Are there energy sources? And leaving aside the question, can the Earth withstand that level of energy consumption? These are fundamental questions that we must be asking. And when cheap energy sources run out, you get a collapse of complexity, and that's what calls collapse of civilization. That means you go from more complex to less complex. And that's the thesis that I was talking about. This is independent of issues of global warming, climate change, all of that. So sustainability has a broader dimension in terms of, can we afford to, all of 9 billion people or 8+ billion people on Earth, can we afford to consume 50, 100 times the energy we are consuming today to achieve a kind of an American average of energy consumption? That's a really important question to ask.
I have heard you use the term transnational localism.
Yeah.
Please explain what that is and how that fits into this picture you're describing.
I always believe that to have a happy life, we must remain rooted to a place, to a culture, something that we call our own, like our own families, our own networks. All of that is essential for human happiness. I take it as an axiomatic truth, right? All of us know this instinctively. So that rooted part is important. Then the second part, we must be connected in order to achieve the fruits of our technological age, and connected not just in terms of communication, but connected in terms of knowledge, acquiring knowledge, learning from each other, all of it. Something is discovered somewhere. If we come to know it quickly, we adopt it, we achieve better productivity, all of it. So that's a connected part. So this rooted and connected is very critical. This whole transnational localism is really that put into philosophy, these two, rooted and connected. So the localism part is the rooted part. The transnational part is the connected part. I mean, that's how we think about it. So rooted and connected, operationalized as a company philosophy, is transnational localism. What it means in practice is we put down roots in regions. We don't look at it as a kind of a transactional relationship. We put down roots. We actually build our own facilities often and then empower local employees. We want those to become part of our extended Zoho family, be rooted in the company, be rooted in their areas, and live long and prosper, as I say. That's the idea of this. And we have been doing it wherever we go. Of course, we are not in every place in the world, but wherever we are, we try to remain rooted. And of course, connected from the company itself and to the broader market, society, all of that.
A really interesting set of questions from Ramanth. And he says, can you take us through the evolution of rural development, research and development philosophy? Did you always have this larger plan? As you went through this journey, did you have to change any of your assumptions? And let me add to that, you moved from the heart of the Bay Area, Pleasanton, right outside Silicon Valley, to rural India yourself. And so maybe take us through the evolution and also talk about your own personal story as far as reducing consumption.
So the first one, how these ideas came to be, 5 years ago, nearly about 5 years ago, when I moved myself to rural India, actually a few months before the pandemic. I didn't know a pandemic was coming. So I moved myself because I wanted to be there. I'd long dreamt of being there because I wanted to work on these ideas. But did I have the connection, the rural development and research development all worked out? No, I didn't. I had a kind of an intuition about it, maybe an early preformed ideas about it. But there's something, one thing that I always believe. You have to get in it, experience it, experiment, then you will discover some truths. That's how these things came to be. So it's very much an evolutionary process where you attempt something, you learn something, then you attempt something new, you learn something, and that becomes a part of, I'm going to call it an experiment in philosophy. So if you will, that's how I'm learning. And my moving back was very much part of that broader experiment of life itself, where I long ago decided that's where I want to be. And for reasons, I'll tell you where some of that motivation came from. I saw wealth in Silicon Valley. I saw the hyper wealth that's actually possible. And in Silicon Valley, there's extreme wealth, concentration of wealth, And I also saw that there's a lot of, loneliness, for example. And in the midst of plenty, in fact, I was there in one very affluent community very much here in North America about 3 days ago. And I asked my host, this is probably one of the top 0.001 percentile of such places in the whole world. So much wealth here. I asked him, what percentage of the people here you think are depressed or lonely? He said, without batting an eyelid, said, at least 25-30% or on antidepressants. He said, among this neighborhood. I said, I had observed the same thing. And why is that true? Surrounded by so much wealth, why do people feel lonely? Why do they have to take antidepressants? This is a question I had pondered over. Then I realized this is my own, in a way, it's also a spiritual journey. I realized that the message of wealth is, and this is true across religious traditions. This doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a particular religious tradition to realize this. Across religious traditions, it's true. When you are gifted with wealth, you are also asked to serve. And there is a Bible quote I always remember, which is, to whom much is given, much is expected. Right? And that's a quote I internalize. And even though I'm not a Christian, but this is a quote that I have internalized, because that sharing, that serving others is very much part of how we achieve our own happiness. A lot of modernity is cutting us out of those. It's not that people don't want to share it, but somehow our living arrangements, all of it, isolate us from the broader needs of people who are the have-nots. So in other words, modern society has become efficient, concentrating device where the richer people are efficiently separated, or the uh, highly capable, intelligent people who can create wealth, or and all of that are separated from the rest of society and set up in these very advanced gated communities, and then they achieve perfect wealth and perfect loneliness often, right? This I became aware of through living. I realized that this is going on, and I also, fortunately, I had that spiritual awakening that we must serve. I must serve in order to be happy, truly happy. And in fact, there was a time when I actually was prescribed antidepressants myself. A doctor friend of mine said, this is, you take this happiness pill, happy pill. And I was thinking, why should I take a happy pill to be happy? I mean, why am I not happy? And then it dawned on me that I must serve. Without it, I'm not going to achieve true happiness. And that's why I moved back. And I'm happy to tell you that I've since been all this kind of feelings of that thing have gone away completely. And so that's a very big personal benefit to me, that being able to serve has also made me happier.
So, this notion of being able to serve, how does that map onto what you're doing with Zoho and transnational localism? And there's also Zoho School. So, there's a whole network of activities and things that you're building. How do these fit together?
First, we create opportunities in places for people who otherwise may not have had the opportunity. That's one thing we do. Second, I also urge our employees to be rooted in their communities and be aware of the broader local society and find ways to take part and be able to serve. In other words, not just they are members, extended members of the Zoho family I described, they are very much also members of their surrounding communities. How do we take part in that life and contribute? And by situating ourselves away from places of extreme wealth, naturally we are able to do this. That's part of the whole geographic location. In other words, Silicon Valley doesn't need our investment. It's already very prosperous. It doesn't also need our investment. But places like McAllen, they could use our investment that really benefit. And then every job we create, our people then can maybe help 3 others, maybe mentor and coach, and what they do on the weekends, what they do in their communities, what they do in their churches, all of that can be helpful to others. So that's the way that I would like to do this. And many of our employees, they find this whole thing inspiring. They find this becomes part of the mission for many of them. Over time, they've been here 5 years, 10 years. Slowly, they find that this whole thing makes sense. Let me take part in this. That's the kind of thing we want to spark.
And I have spoken with a number of your employees over time who have expressed this sense of being inspired. But you are at the same time running a business. And so I'm also really interested in the manifestation of this desire to serve as it is expressed in the business while maintaining a profitable, successful business.
The way that manifests itself is we always want to practice outstanding integrity in our dealings with customers and always deliver outstanding value. Never take the money without delivering at least equal amount of value, preferably more value to them than we take from them. That is an important part of the ethos of this company. In fact, we often say we like to leave money on the table. In other words, we don't want to be extractive. We don't look at this as one of my favorite analysts, Brian puts it, wallet fracking the customer, right? And that's something that we've always been. That's always been part of the ethos of this company, and that's how the customers benefit. And customers who have been long term with us come to realize it, that we won't take advantage of them. We refuse to take advantage of them. That's important to me personally, because I feel, there's no point in trying to serve the world when you are really, wallet fracking your customer. It's completely inconsistent. So much of business world is this whole idea of dualistic thought, where you come into work, you maximize what you can take from the customer, then maybe in your weekend persona, you go serve somebody. I don't think that works. And this type of dichotomy, this type of dualism itself drives people crazy often. And that is why often the burnout, all that, because there is an inner sorrow that comes from this dichotomy. Hey, my work personality has to be different from my off work personality. That's a source of inner sorrow. Deep inside somewhere, even if you're not consciously aware, there's an inner being that's aware of this, and that's a cause of sorrow. So I want us to integrate all these together. Be truthful to the customer and serve them well, and then earn our daily bread because they're truly happy to give it to us. And that's how I like to think about it.
I've been kind of chuckling since you used that term, wallet fracking. Having worked with many of the largest enterprise software companies over these last decades, I absolutely understand what you mean by that term. And I think enterprise buyers also understand what you mean by that term. So would it be correct to say then that Zoho, the way that you lead Zoho, is an attempt for you personally to integrate these different sides of your personality under the umbrella of your general, and I'll say this because you use this term, general spiritual outlook?
By the way, I want to give credit where it's due. The term wallet fracking came from analyst Brent Summers, and his favorite term of his, and I said, I'm going to steal it. I use it, and it always draws a chuckle because it so perfectly captures what's going on there. So I like to use it, and it's very much due to him. And now coming to this, I believe we cannot separate this whole dualistic pattern of thought, where we separate our work selves from our regular selves, and all of these, our community members, or all of this is separate from what I do for work, where maybe I get to wallet frack on a day-to-day basis, but then I'll go and maybe give something for a United Way campaign, all of that. This is part of what makes us, that causes that inner sorrow. And I've come to believe, and this is something that my own spiritual background, the training I received, is emphasizes contentment as a big virtue, and humility. Contentment and humility are two big virtues. And these are something that I want to practice in our business, the way we run our business. Contentment, that means that this customer is paying enough. Let's not keep asking for more. Second, humility, accept that we make mistakes, correct them, learn from them, and keep improving. So those two are fundamental practices we try to practice in our business.
Sridhar, we have a question on Twitter from Ramnath. He comes back again. Very interesting question he asks. He says he's heard a lot about the culture of Zoho. How do you preserve that culture as you scale up and spread out in rural areas and across countries? And he goes on, some of the Zoho culture is shaped by your philosophy. So how do you communicate that to Zoho employees?
If you are consciously all the time thinking, how do you preserve this something very precious and spread it, all that it has to happen kind of an organic diffusion, transmission. In other words, it cannot be preachy. It cannot be constantly we are conducting sermons to people all the time about this. They don't work. People get bored, right? Or they just turn off. So it has to be a slow diffusion, organic diffusion, and people can disagree. I very much accept that this may not be for everyone. People may not be in the frame of mind to accept these or agree with these. That's perfectly okay. They should try their own philosophical experiments. So, and having said that, the way that keep this is ultimately we want people to be, in a sense, their own inner gurus, listen to their own inner selves. And I can just only act as a catalyst. Maybe listen to your own voice. Like, does this make you happy? This way of thinking, this way of integrating this, being contented, does it make you happy? And those are, then people realize it, then they start practicing. Then I won't be needed to preach to anyone anymore. And that's how we scale it. Really, the scaling principle is to render myself irrelevant to this or unnecessary to this, so that it gets automatically practiced. And that's really the idea.
How do you do that? Many business leaders want to express a corporate culture that is very positive and with servant leadership and beneficial, but something gets lost in translation. So how do you accomplish this?
I have to live the life. In any hypocrisy in all this, where you preach something and you practice something else, discredits the whole thing. People are very sensitive to these things, right? So, in my day-to-day interactions with employees, with customers, with anyone at all, I have to practice it. And by only practicing it, would other people then could even see that maybe it's worth, I can study this and learn something. That's the spark I have to create. So it's part of it. That is my responsibility. And in fact, you talk about my rural life. I talk about sustainability, energy consumption. I have voluntarily cut down my own per capita energy consumption from my Pleasanton American life to what I live now. Easily a order of magnitude and much more energy has been cut from daily use. And I'm happier actually as a result. But I don't preach this. I don't say, oh, go, you don't drive your car. I don't do this. No, nothing. I won't preach this. But I am happy. I'm voluntarily doing this. And that's, if you want, you can, this is what I do. And maybe, try this, some experiment. That's how I'll put it.
We have an interesting question from Elizabeth Shaw, who says, this is from Twitter, how has your philosophy and the corporate policies to foster your vision of transnational localism affected company performance?
If we don't keep up with technology revolutions, if our products are not relevant, we don't serve our customers, we'll go out of business, right? It's not like customers will buy our product because they like the philosophy of the company. They have to like the product first. The product has to perform. So all of that's the reality test always. In other words, all this abstract philosophy is nonsense if we don't actually deliver the product that the customer needs and we don't perform. The product doesn't perform. It doesn't stay relevant. And fortunately, we've been able to do this. And that itself is, holistically, the reason is our engineers, our people in technology believe broadly, and they understand the challenge. We have to definitely maintain our relevance in this technology world. And so we are inventing stuff, and I am inventing things. I work on a lot of deep technology myself. So invent solutions to problems. So that's part of the reality check on all these, maybe for some people, flights of fancy.
So there's a natural grounding that takes place, and the business is a forcing function. The realities of business is a forcing function to maintain that grounding.
Exactly. And the grounding is a very apt word, because if you don't ground the circuit, the free-floating voltage can go anywhere, haywire. It can damage the equipment, right? So grounding is essential. So the business staying relevant, serving the customer, earning their custom, keeps us honest.
Tell us about Zoho Schools. I know that's a very large project and one that's very important to you.
So Zoho Schools is another philosophical experiment, if you will, in this idea that a formal credentials, or much of the time in the real world, not very relevant to real world performance. B, these very rigid formal credentialing requirements also keep people out who otherwise could have performed the job. I believe both propositions are true in the real world. That people who could have done the job often are kept out or keep themselves out for fear that they won't be able to clear that formal credential bar. This is true very much in software engineering and programming, all that. And the second part is that, of course, that we can create capabilities in people. And that, so the primary, we summarize our schools this way: education that is contextual, experiential, and relevant. Those are the three words we use.
How large an effort is this?
This year, about 220 or 230 students incoming class just now. I mean, just about 2 weeks ago, this class entered. I met many of them just recently, about a couple of weeks ago. Every year, I try to meet the incoming class. And the classroom is about a year of very rigorous hands-on. So the experiential part, learned by doing, contextual. A lot of the technologies are very relevant to how we build products, and so that they're relevant to that. And that's so that we train them and we pay them while training. We also take care of their food, all that. So they can, in other words, that's also coming from the conviction that young people should not be trapped in debt. I am a very strong proponent that societies that trap their young people in debt are doing a massive injustice to their own young people. So there is a proverb in where I come from in Tamil that says there's nothing more cruel than young people in debt. And I firmly believe that philosophy. So we pay them a stipend and we train them, we create the opportunity for them so that they can live a debt-free life. That's the goal.
What is then the relationship between Zoho schools, transnational localism, decentralized technology, and Zoho's ability to hire skilled and capable people?
That first and the last part, Zoho schools is a key component of how we create and nurture talent. And Zoho schools is a formalized institutional effort that way. But everywhere we operate, we actually practice the philosophy, maybe in a less formal way. For example, we may take people who don't have the precise background, but they are willing to learn. We may take, we may extend an opportunity that way. We often do that, and that's true worldwide. And we bring in people from maybe an unrelated background, but who still have the skills, like somebody who could write good content, but they don't know anything about the domain. They become communicators in our domain. This is actually, we have done this and it has been very successful for us. So that philosophy of what Zoho schools is, that is not really worry about formal credentials, is applicable worldwide. And where we are, the transnational localism, the part where we are creating jobs in places where such jobs don't exist. Therefore, we have to create and nurture talent. Therefore, this idea of extending opportunity is relevant. And then we enable those people to be rooted so that as they prosper, as they become skilled, they are able to stand and they are able to be to create good income for themselves. They are able to help others, spread that gifts around. And so that's all of these are interlinked for us.
This is from Arsalan Khan, and he asked this quite a while ago, and I had missed it. He said that he read recently that an AI interviewer will interview humans. How do you address biases in recruiting with AI? And biases currently exist, for example, based on what your name is, just in talent selection.
This is a very valid concern. AI is not some kind of a magical device. It incorporates all of the biases humanity has, and those are very much part of the training set. And in fact, we actually don't know what it could do in a given situation. It's very much a black box. I'm extremely uncomfortable with this whole AI interviewing people. I don't agree with it. I don't believe that's a wise idea. I hope companies won't do this.
And another question from Elizabeth Shaw on Twitter, again, very quickly. How do you infuse your philosophy into corporate policies and strategy at Zoho? And how can you tell how closely the outcomes match your expectations? I think that's a question of metrics and evaluations, measures.
If you try to metricize all this, that I will create 18 metrics to ensure that all of these are correctly practiced, we are doing it wrong. This whole thing cannot be reduced to any such reductive metrics. In fact, I am opposed to this whole measure and manage as practiced in the human realm. As I often like to say, metrics are for widgets, metrics for software, for factories, for how the goods are produced, the production, the parts, their tolerances, all of that. Metrics are great for that, but metrics are not great for human beings, primarily because we don't have a notion of a standardized human being. Many ideologies try to create some kind of a standardized human being. In standardized testing, all of it is coming from that same source. I fundamentally don't believe in it, which is why we will not metricize all of these things. Then how do you measure? You don't measure. You have to know. And this, it sounds like, in some kind of, again, this all will sound bullshit unless you are living it. Okay, and that's the fact. And fortunately, I have our senior management, our leadership team. They've all been with us all this. They've been very much co-creators in this journey. I am one of the most articulate ones, so I grab an unfair amount of credit. But whether it's our founder Tony Thomas and my brother Kumar, who was very much part of the initial founding, and my other brother Mani and my sister Radha, all of them, and Shailesh, our co-founder, they've all been part of this journey. They instinctively know. We've been together for 28 years. So it's not like I don't preach to them. They just know these things internally, and we just have that philosophical core weaving us together. So that's why things work.
Sounds like it would be very hard to transplant this system to other companies.
So the idea is not to transplant, but nurture and grow into this. That's how I'll put it. So you create small groups like this, and then steadily as they grow, and that's how I see it.
Sridhar, what advice do you have for business leaders that are listening to this and want to adopt some of these lessons for their own organization?
Try some small ideas, small experiments first. Maybe in one team, change the way you hire, create opportunities, and first of all, find people who are, before even that step, find a solid anchor, somebody who believes in these ideas, somebody who has a philosophical conviction about what I'm saying. Find that person, empower them to run some experiments, and they will find these truths themselves. That's how I say. Then at that point, I am not relevant. They'll discover these things themselves.
And finally, for students who want to apply to Zoho schools, how should they do that?
We have online. You go to zohoschools.com, I believe, and you have the application process. And we now get tens of thousands of applicants. It's kind of gone viral. It's so sad because I'm not very proud of the fact that we get 20,000 applicants. I wish we got fewer applicants. I wish we could take many more of them, but we take about 250 now. We're trying to expand it, but subject to faculty availability. It actually is it's not just about investing the money. We have to have passionate people to do this, the training, all of that, and then our teams have to have the needs, right? We want to be able to guarantee a job when they graduate, when they finish. So, but we are getting a lot of applicants, but we hope to. I hope we do this in an equitable manner, because that's always a challenge, right? When you get so many, how do you select some people? And I don't want to claim that the ones we reject are not the good ones. That's because given the percentages involved here, but so we do have that application process there.
Okay, very good. Well, I want to say a huge thank you to Sridhar Vembu from Zoho. Sridhar, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Mike.
And everybody watching, thank you for watching, especially everybody who asked such excellent questions. You guys are truly awesome. Now, before you go, please subscribe to our newsletter so we can notify you about upcoming shows. Check out CXOTalk.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will see you again next time. We really have great shows coming up, so check it out. Take care, everybody, and have a good day.